Kilifi was once a jewel in the coast province. Tourists used to flock this coastal town in the north every year to sample its rich cultural diversity, while crop production and livestock keeping both contributed immensely to the county's economy. But today, all that is in the past. There are signs of despair everywhere you look. The dried earth can no longer support crop production, and the animals are fighting for dear life. The green vegetation cover that once painted the landscape in Kilifi is all gone. Only dust and carcasses remain now. And if the faces of these locals here are anything to go by, then Kilifi County is slowly grounding to a halt. Bamba Ganze constituency in the county of Kilifi, and here I first encountered just how difficult life has become for the locals.
Okay.
This is 70-year-old Mzee Gona Warimba's home. There is nothing to write home about.
Hata unamalizika.
Mzee Warimba has been ailing for the past 10 years. With his 16 children and 15 grandchildren, provision of food is no mean task, and this year has been the worst.
Kiangazi ni jua ni hiyo na linatia njaa yake. Manake maji hakuna tena. Maji ile kwako lakini hivi hakuna. Shafadhali wanzangu maana mapikipiki matafata maji mbali. Mimi pikipiki sina, hata basikili nayo sina.
The last drop of rain on his little piece of land fell in March. The crop his family planted did not even sprout. With his body slowly shutting down and unable to get adequate food, Mzee Warimba tells me he might not live to see another rainy season.
Mimi ni karibuni kufa na njaa, manake siwezi tena.
Several kilometers from Mzee Warimba's homestead is a shallow water pan. Well, it used to be a water pan. It is all dried up. The carcasses of 5 cows that fell victim to the drought litter the place. This water pan used to quench the thirst of the communities here and their livestock. What water there was left evaporated weeks ago, courtesy of the scorching sun. We are told these animals died just 4 days ago. The owner brought them here hoping to find some water, but upon arrival, the animals became weak.
Mifugo wetu hapa ambao tumetegemea kwa kiwa ni kama kitega uchumi wetu imeangamia kwa wingi. Naweza kusema kulingana na ile idadi ambao mimi najua ambao ni mifugo hasa ng'ombe ambao wako hapa zaidi ya 1500, naweza kusema ni hao 1000 ni kama wameangamia.
As we move on, we encounter more carcasses, young animals and mature ones. The remains now feed maggots. The livestock in Bamba have been dying faster than they can reach areas with pasture, but there are no greener pastures to get to in Bamba. The herders are simply going round in circles, driving their animals for kilometers on end while losing them one by one along the way. Back in the homesteads, Santa Carissa lights a fire. Her siblings went out to look for food early morning. It is now 3 p.m. and they are yet to return. She says she has been lighting fires for days and has had to put them off because there is no food to prepare.
Maji tunachota mbali Kavunzoni Mkwajuni kilomita 25.
This community has always been poor, but until 3 years ago they were able to cultivate their land and get a good harvest. Of late, getting food has been a big challenge.
Changamoto tunazopata kiangazi cha jua, mvua hakunyesha, njaa.
Mitangoni Ganze. Here we experience firsthand how some of these herders are losing their animals one after the other. It is a difficult sight to watch. Sami Kazungu has been driving his flock for 15 kilometers. Everywhere he hopes to find a patch of green grass to feed his animals has nothing but dry land. One of his best milk producers collapses on the ground. Too weak to continue with the journey, his cow lies on the ground and will not get up again. Desperate, Kazungu seeks help from fellow herders and tries to lift the animal back on its feet. And it is no easy task. We watch as a man who has lost several animals before these struggles to make his beloved animal walk again. His efforts and those of his comrades are all useless. They struggle to get the cow up, but each time they use their energy to lift her up, her 4 feet will not support her weak body. Exhausted, the men take a break. Soon they gather strength and try several more times to get her up, but the numerous tries yield nothing. On the animal's face, what appears to be courage and despair, a desire to get up and walk, that cannot be supported by the weak muscles.
Mimi nilikuwa na ng'ombe 110 na saa hii vile ninavyozungumza hapa ng'ombe zaidi ya 50 wamekufa. Hata saa hii kuna mmoja ameanguka chini na mpaka sasa nimejaribu kumuinua ameshindwa kusimama. Na hiyo ni ishara wazi kwamba huyu si wangu, ni ishara wazi kwamba atakufa. Kwa hivyo saa hii mimi naona kama nimeisha kabisa kiuchumi.
They try once more, stirring hope and excitement when its entire body mass is off the ground. But that is just about it. It will not move an inch. I can hear one of the men urge it to move. Eventually, the animal and the men alike lose hope. She goes down again, this time lying on her side. I know then that this is the beginning of the end. She is still breathing, but you can tell it is going to be her last.
Hapa tumepatwa na ukame kutoka mwezi wa 3 mvua iishe kunyesha mpaka sasa mvua haijanyesha. Basi tumekuwa na kiangazi kikali sana.
We are all dejected, Kazungu mostly, but we all had to move on, leaving the dying animal behind. 6 hours later, we received a phone call. Kazungu's cow, which he purchased for 15,000 shillings 2 years ago, has died. At Midoina location, such scenes have become all too common in Kilifi. Herders are forced to abandon their weak animals anywhere and move on with the others in search of pasture.
Kwa umri wangu sijawahi ona kama miaka 40 zaidi iliyozaliwa sijaona kiangazi cha muda mrefu kama hiki.
This black cow on the ground can hear vibrations on the earth as the other animals pass by, and it struggles to kick itself up, but it soon gives up and lays on the ground motionless. Like many before it, it died. It is not just the animals that are suffering. At Kavutsoni, we find one of the very few water pans that still has water. Here, animals, children and women are all competing for the little that is left of the commodity. It is likely to dry up soon. From a distance, it looks like water that can only be used by animals. But what we discover upon looking at the activities here is disturbing. Girls who ought to be in school have been forced to scavenge for water for domestic use. Carrying little containers, the girls and the other middle-aged women use sticks to dip their containers into the water and fill up their jerrycans. The water turned muddy ages ago and is now somewhere between brown, grey and green. That is what we use every day, Agnes Kalama explains.
Tunakotoka kutafuta maji ni mbali. Maji yenyewe ni machafu, yameharibika. Ni utoe majani kwanza ndio maana uteke maji ambayo kidogo ana afadhali. Ng'ombe wetu anakufa ndani ya maji. Maji yameharibika kwa sababu ya mifugo. Wanakunya ndani ya maji, wanakojoa ndani ya maji.
There is green moss and leaves scattered around the water pan. Locals tell me this is the only way to prevent the water from evaporating. Before fetching the water, these women have to remove the green matter from the water and then collect their fill for the day. The water they collect is full of algae, insects, animal fur, lice and even fleas. But for them, it is a choice between death by starvation and thirst or risking deadly infections by drinking.
Kwa sisi wananchi tunateseka kwa sababu ya viongozi wetu hawatufanyii zile haki zao wanazosema wakati wakiwa wanatafuta kura.
We asked them whether they boil this water before using it. And we got an answer spontaneously.
Hatuna maji mengine ya kunywa isipokuwa tu ni hayo. Tumepata maradhi, tunapitia maradhi mbalimbali ya tumbo kwa sababu ya kunywa maji machafu.
At the edge of the water pan is one cow that is too weak to even drink. Like many other herders, its owner has abandoned it here. It was unable to get up and walk. The women told us that the animal has been here for close to 4 hours. It just sat on the ground, staring as one group of women came, fetched water and left. If it dies here, the maggots that will eat its flesh and hide will end up in the water. But there is little care from the women here. Already the water looks unsafe, and it is only a matter of time before this water pan dries up too. Again, we leave this animal to die. Several years ago, experts indicated that Kilifi would be affected by drought because the rainy season had begun to show signs of scarcity. This windmill was hurriedly erected and a borehole dug in order to assist the locals easily access water for their own consumption as well as their animals. It functioned for a while before grinding to a halt. Today, this towering windmill only makes squeaking sounds. Some of the groundwater used to collect here for use by the animals, but now the animals hardly get 20 gallons of the salty water. They can only afford to lick it, but not quench their thirst. If more water is not available for these animals, then it is only a matter of time before they too end up like this. According to the National Drought Management Authority, Kilifi has been classified as being in the severe vegetation deficit band, owing to the below average rainy season this year. And it gets worse. Recently collected and documented data in terms of trade involving milk production, livestock production and crop production shows Kilifi is not improving or stabilizing, but worsening. In the drought status trend, 17 counties have been classified as being between normal and alert status. But Kilifi, you guessed it, on the alarm status, bordering on the emergency state. By July this year, this county had only received 11.5 million shillings as drought contingency funds to cater for nutrition, livestock supplements, borehole repairs and water tracking. Deforestation has been going on here at an alarming rate as locals cut trees for charcoal and fuel. Most affected areas are Ganze, Magarini, Kilifi North and Kilifi South.
These are 3 failed seasons. And therefore the situation is that grim. And looking ahead, the earliest that we can talk of a crop harvest is maybe in May. You know, that is if we get the rains early in the year. And from what we're gathering is that the situation is actually getting worse and worse. You know, we've just had a talk with the Met department just to give them, to give us a forecast on how the situation will be, whether it's going to get better. But even them, they don't have really a good word for the farmers in Kilifi. So we are staring at a situation where maybe we've not yet seen the worst.
Global warming is said to be making matters worse in this county.
The price of global warming is being paid by the poor chaps in Kilifi, by the poor chaps in this country, by the poor chaps in Africa. And therefore, in the long run, as a county, as a government, we may do so much. But if we don't address global warming, all these efforts we're doing here will actually go down the drain. So it's time to wake up. The world has to wake up and tell these big economies that enough is enough.
Msumarini village is one of the many villages here in Magarini constituency in the county of Kilifi, where farmers and communities at large are being ravaged by hunger and drought. Now, the planting season here, like many parts of the country, starts in April. Most of the farmers here come to their farms, cultivated, tilled and put the seed on the ground, hoping to get a bumper harvest sometime in November. But this is what they have. This year's harvest will be the worst ever recorded in Kilifi. Most of the maize plantations we visited look like this. The maize crop is either stunted or has produced very little maize. 1 acre in Msumarini location can only produce 1 sack of maize.
The drought situation in Kilifi is really bad. It's acute, and therefore we call upon well-wishers to come along to see how we can make necessary interventions. As a county government, we've put in measures, but due to the weight of the matter, we may not be able to reach out to the numbers that are affected.
Most farmers took loans to cultivate land and plant crops. The current situation compounds their woes. In this 2.5-acre piece of land, this farmer is expected to harvest less than 3 bags. And the current value of maize per Gani bag in the market is only 1,500 shillings. The communities here say they have simply wasted an entire year.
Kwa ufupi hakuna kitu. Hakuna kitu. Hata naangalia masuala mengine au hata fuga jamii yake.
Kama shamba hili ni eka ngapi?
Hapa ni eka 2.5.
Akitoa zaidi hapa atatoa kama magunia mangapi?
Tuseme kama kasogi kamoja.
Kagunia kamoja.
Kagunia kamoja ka.
Hako akitaka toshelezi chakula.
Na familia yake haitoshi.
We don't want to see loss of life. And that's why with the intervention of the county, with the intervention of our government actors, with the intervention of the national government, we should be able to put in a structure that can be able to sustain us until all the way to April.
Elina Monje now says her backup plan to feed her young ones is this: guinea fowls and pigeons. She has resorted to keeping these wild birds for their meat, as she sells some of the eggs to her neighbors.
Ndiyo tunajaribu vile, manake kila kitu kama ukikosa hii unapata. Ndege kama vile mwenzangu amesema ni shilingi 50 uchukue, na mimi napata ile 50, napata mafuta ya taa, ni watoto wanapata vitabu, wanaenda shule.
Many here blame the county and national governments for failing to come to their rescue. Officers from relevant agencies of government have visited the area, and all they have done is collect data, leaving residents to ask whether there is any commitment and plan to help them get through this.
Naweza kusema hapa ile county government haijafanya chochote hasa kuhusiana na mambo ya hii kiangazi vile inaendelea.
Au kweli county government naweza sema mpaka sasa haijafanya kitu. Imejaribu kutuma maofisa wa mifugo kutoka Ganze sub county kwa aje kutathmini katika hali hii ya ukame, lakini baada ya kuja kuzungumza nasi wakasema kwamba hii ni kwamba wanataka kuja kununua kuna shirika limejitolea kuja kununua mifugo hii imekonda na hii ambayo ni kama mifugo yetu, tujaribu kuuza ile mzuri tupate pesa watuuzie, lakini mpaka sasa hawajakuja.
Many of the herders have been forced to become pastoralists as they drive their animals from one village to another, but this could lead to conflict among communities.
If you're to flee your area of residence, you need to go to a place where there's bumper harvest. There's nowhere where there's bumper harvest. So I'm not foreseeing a situation where people will start migrating from one location to the other, because the entire area is actually affected.
The immediate requirements for most of the starving people are food and water. Currently, water levels have dropped significantly, with the distance for households to access water increasing by 44%, which is now more than twice the long-term average. These girls spend between 3 to 6 hours per day in search of water, and whatever they get is not sufficient and not clean for consumption. Meanwhile, livestock prices are falling hard in Kilifi, with many farmers forced to sell their animals for between 1,500 shillings and 3,000 shillings.
Hata tukienda sokoni, ukisema unataka kuuza ng'ombe, unataka kupeleka sokoni Bamba, ukifika hapo soko, ng'ombe moja mama mzima unaambiwa ni shilingi 3,000 ama 2,000. Sasa inakushinda hata utauza ng'ombe ngapi ili isaidie wenzake ambao wako nyuma. Sasa hii ndio imetufanya sisi ni kama tunaisha kabisa kiuchumi. Tumekwenda kuisha kabisa, yani hapa ikiwa hii hali haitathibitiwa, ni ukweli wa mambo hapa Mitangani, sisi tutakuwa maskini wa mwisho sana.
I leave Midoina in Bamba, Ganze constituency just as I had found it. This weak and worn out cow struggles to get to the water pan. The ribs protruding on its skin, an indication that it has not eaten for weeks. If the imminent short rain season is below average as the forecast suggests, then this area is likely to deteriorate to emergency phase. The crisis in Kilifi looks set to deepen. Nimrod Taabu, NTV.